The Leafs do win. They get another W. And no, the strength of competition has not been phenomenal for the start of the season. Kind of a nice start. Eased them into the pool. They got to wade in. Didn't have to just jump right in the deep end. It was, kiddie pool, wade around a little bit. Have yourself a time with the new coach. There are some of you that get mad every single time anybody has an opinion on the Leafs right now because you go, it's early, and it's too soon to say. And even yesterday, we put out the video of me talking about, hey, this really does have a pretty good chance of being the best free agent blue line crop that this team has had in the salary cap era. Well, it's 3 games. Just watch the video, listen to the names, see if they can leapfrog Brett Lebda and Stefan Robida and Jeff Finger. I think they're going to do it. I think Tanev and OEL and maybe Hakanpää, we'll see, TBD, that they can do it, that they can be the best class. This team just has caused so much pain to so many different fans. They've caused so many people to be frustrated. They've gotten your hopes up so many times just from the even beginning of this era to now that obviously there is a natural reluctance. I think that it's a healthy reluctance to buy into being overwhelmingly positive about the Toronto Maple Leafs, right? It makes you feel like a bit of a sucker. Even though it's early and even though this probably will backfire, just like every other time I've been positive about the Maple Leafs, doesn't this feel a little different in terms of the style of play, the way that they look? Doesn't it? Doesn't it feel like they're a little bit more connected, lines 1 through 4? And especially considering the forward depth that we talked about that this team would have. And again, tougher competition is coming. But doesn't it look a little better? Don't you feel a little bit more solid about the goaltending, knowing the way that this guy is playing so far and that Joe Woll is going to come back and the injury apparently does not seem to be overly concerning, and that they've got this kid, Dennis Hildeby, in the minors now, or soon to be in the minors, who seems like he can actually play? Doesn't the blue line seem like it has more balance? That it's more mature? That you've got more reliable players? Don't the stars look good? Don't they look healthy? Don't they look strong? Aren't they playing in a style that does feel different than before? I would say yes. And so again, it is 4 games and it is a small sample. I've got to do a job every day. I've got to come on here. I got to talk about it after the game. So don't really know what you want me to do, but I'm just telling you, this is how I feel right now, is that the goaltending, the coaching, the defense, all of it looks better. All of it looks different. And now you've got, last night, the coach decides, you know what, we're going to put Domi down the middle, which I've always been skeptical of, right? I like Domi with good players for good reason. Look at the way that when he gains the zone, he just gets on that half wall, patient with the puck, makes beautiful reads, can make beautiful passes, man. His offensive skill set is just unbelievably enjoyable to watch. But I was always dubious of the idea that he could anchor a line down the middle, and we'll see if he actually can as the season holds on. But he and Nylander really do seem to have some kind of chemistry going. And maybe these are the perfect opponents for them again. Maybe. But the signs are pretty damn encouraging. And Austin Matthews scores his first goal last night, but man, how many should he actually have? Because he's been buzzing. Marner's been buzzing. Nyes looks bigger, stronger, faster. He's hitting people. Robertson looks like a real player. The McMahon thing is really encouraging, and I don't know why you wouldn't believe it, because that actually extends back to last season. Just so far, hard to really nitpick a lot of negatives about what we've seen from this team so far. So, yeah, James Mirtle, senior writer for The Athletic. What's wrong with you?
Nothing.
Nothing?
It sounds like we're in positive corner here, is what it sounds like.
How could you not be? What are you supposed to say that's negative about this team so far?
Yeah, I know. I wrote a piece last week, and people were like, it's too early. It's like, well, they looked good early, I know. You're right. I want to see them play against some of the top teams in the league. They will. Hey, guess what? They play 82. You're gonna get your wish. Yeah. So, but all you can do is evaluate based on what we've seen so far, and it looks good. So. Yeah. What surprised you the most so far? Ekman-Larsson surprises me the most. Yeah. Because he was a third pair guy for the Panthers. Mm-hmm. He played a little bit in the top 4, but that's one of the best teams in the league. And they had to play him in the top four the first month of the season last year with Aaron Ekblad out, and they're like, no, this isn't it. We're putting him on the third pair. He's going to be like a 16, 17-minute guy, and that's what he was all the way through to winning the Cup. And you talk to people in Vancouver, and I have a lot of friends in Vancouver, a lot of family. That's their favorite team, and they're like, yeah, this guy, that's a bad signing. This guy can't do it. He can't play. He can't move. And then you watch him, and it's like, he looks fantastic. He looks like he looks like Arizona Ekman-Larsson when he was a number one defenseman, making big money and making a big impact on the game. And I mean, if there's some sort of renaissance for him and he can play like that this season, it's a huge win for the Leafs.
I'm even more invested in Ekman-Larsson now because of the Vancouver barbs that have come this way. Like, this actually makes it far more interesting for people here in Toronto that Vancouver, it does not want the Ekman-Larsson thing to work in Toronto. They don't want anything to work in Toronto, but this specifically would be a real sting for people in Vancouver, given that they've all taken the hardline position of don't trust this guy. He's going to fade on you. Don't trust this guy. He's not very good.
Well, he was bad there. I mean, the working theory now is, when I talk to people, is that he was playing through some injuries and he came out of Arizona and his confidence was shattered in that trade and everything that happened, and he had to get his body right, and that process started last year in Florida, and he looks good. I mean, I'm not really seeing. They're playing McCabe and Ekman-Larsson against top lines. When they play New Jersey, he's out there against Jack Hughes. I didn't see that coming either.
And now McCabe's learning from him, because the read he made and the pass he made last night, I went, that was OEL-esque. He's picking up from him. It's like a pitching staff where one guy has a great breaking ball and he teaches it to the rest of the pitching staff, and he's trying to teach him his grip. That's what OEL's doing for Jake McCabe now.
This is the best McCabe's ever looked.
Yeah.
He looks fantastic.
Yes, he sure does.
They're both playing huge minutes, and McCabe's not running around all over the place, which is, when he's at his worst, he's overcompensating, and maybe that had to do with who he was playing with in the past, or they look like a top pair. So that's the most surprising thing to me, is that the way that I thought that Tanev Riley would be the top pair. I thought they would play the crap out of those two guys and live and die with them, and then the second pair would be fine. And that's not what's happening right now.
I will say that as the season goes on and when they get into the toughest minutes of the year, I do expect that will be that is still going to be the case.
Well, he's been putting McCabe out with Tanev late in games to lock it down. So maybe he'll create some Frankenstein pairs and do that in situations when he needs it.
I was actually thinking about McCabe last night when he made that play, because I went, wait, did he end up signing that extension? And he hasn't yet. Remember, there was all this talk of, hey, McCabe's going to get extended soon. This is probably going to get done before the season starts. It's going to be this kind of a deal, blah, 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 blah. And everyone kind of braced themselves for it. And everyone kind of went, yeah, of course, end up doing that. What happened there? Do you know?
Still working on it. Yeah. I think it could happen anytime. I mean, not guaranteed. You could be his agent right now and say, like, hey, maybe we should wait. If you're playing like this, if you're going to be playing 22 minutes a night and you're going to put up some real points, all of a sudden the number doesn't start with a 5 anymore. It gets bigger.
Don't wait too long. he's good.
No, if you're the Leafs, I've been watching them through 4 games, like, yeah, they probably should have just done this in preseason. I mean, I don't know exactly where. That's actually on my plate to look into a little bit closer. I don't know exactly how close it got, but I still think it's going to get done. I mean, he wants to be here, and so
he likes it here. I was actually talking about this, I think, the other day with Feuda. Maybe it even was yesterday, just about how he is one of the American guys that did not care about playing in Canada. Was not one of the dudes who, and like, don't put me here, don't send me there. He thrives under the pressure. He's fine with the pressure of it. He likes the market. He likes the role. But yeah, it was one of those things where I already had it in my brain that he had extended. And then yesterday I went, wait, I don't remember doing that coverage in depth. Did I dream that it happened? Did it actually? It's like, oh no, I looked it up. There were reports, but it just hasn't happened yet. So, okay. I would say that, yes, the Ekman-Larsson thing for sure is the most surprising. I think it's hard to argue with that, just given that his expectation was fairly low. A lot of people thought that the signing wasn't very good. I didn't really have too strong of opinion on it, other than the fact that the contract took him till his age 36 season. And I went, oh, okay, that's a bit more of an investment than I thought you were going to have to make in this guy. But it's pretty clear Toronto's strategy right now with these contracts is, hey, don't worry, we'll make it bad at the end because we really need to tamp down the number during the primes of Matthews, Marner, and Nylander, which is a fine strategy, which is a sensible strategy. But I would say if I was going to go with a secondary one, right now it's what we saw last night from Domi and McMahon and with Nylander. Not that individually those guys are not really good players, but the way that worked yesterday and the points that these guys are producing right now, Nylander, I guess, not so much in this because no matter where you put him, I think he's going to produce points. But yeah, the way that Domi has looked to start the season, no matter where you've put him, has been not shocking, but damn, he looks incredible.
Yeah, he really wanted to be here.
Yeah.
He took less than he could have got somewhere else. And that was one of those contract negotiations where I'm pretty sure he went to the agent and just said, make it happen. I want, he grew up here, he this is home, and he's friends with Matthews, and he was super, super, super excited to get that deal done and to be here. So I think he's a guy who's just having the time of his life. He's always wanted to play for this team, and now he is, and he's putting in the work. So Domi's a guy that's bounced around so much in his career, and his game has flaws, but it also has some real high points. And he looks great with McMahon because he needs like a big guy who just goes to the net and just, because Domi can put it in such good spots. Like he can just put it on a tee, and Nylander obviously can shoot it really well as well. So I think perhaps they got something there, don't they?
Yeah, I do. I just think the IQs of Nylander and Domi mesh really well in the offensive zone. That those two guys are going to look for one another, that those two guys are going to create space for one another. And yeah, if you're Bobby McMahon, you're thrilled right now. You're going, oh my God, this is my actual dream because all I have to do is crash the net. All I need to do is be the trailer like he was yesterday. And those two guys are going to find him and they're going to put him in just the most advantageous spots over and over and over again. Like, I think that's a great point by you.
Yeah, and then he just leans into as heavy a shot as it's funny. Like McMahon, I don't know what it is, but he's not actually that big. Like he's listed at, I think he's like 6'2", 210 or something. Yeah. But then you see him on the ice, and it's, I don't know what it is. Like he looks bigger than that to me.
He's broad
he looks like,
too.
Yeah, he's just maybe it's all upper body or something. I don't know what it is, but he really stands out on the ice as, and good balance, and he just it's amazing a guy like that was never drafted. Goes through 4 years of college, starts in the ECHL. Like he's quite a story.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you heard Berube last night talking about Pacioretty, right?
Yeah.
He mentioned that not everybody's going to play every single night. So we are going to see some fluctuation with this roster and with this forward group in particular. Like guys are going to come in, guys are going to come out. I think sometimes it's going to be a little strange to some of us because we're going to look at it and go, wait, wasn't that guy playing well? I don't understand what ended up happening here. But do you think that they're going to give that line in particular an extended look, that this is now going to become more about trying to find the right pieces around Tavares than trying to find the right pieces on that line in particular?
You know what? I think having watched Berube through preseason and the first 4 games, I think it's going to matter what they do defensively, whether or not that line stays together. Mm-hmm. I think that's really going to matter to him. And Berube obviously wasn't happy with the way stretches of that game went yesterday, even though they were way up. And he's a details guy. Like he can see it. And I think the Pacioretty thing, on a lot of teams that would have been surprising, but I liked it. I thought that Pacioretty hadn't really stood out, hadn't been amazing, was only playing 11 minutes a game. Why can't he be the guy that sits? And it sends a message, I think, to everyone in that dressing room that, hey, it can be anybody. It can be anybody that I sit. It's not going to matter how many hundreds of goals you've scored in the NHL. It doesn't matter to me. How good was your last game? And I think that sends a really good message, especially with how crowded their lineup is and how many extra bodies they have. And, they've got a lot of depth. And just wait till, Connor Dewar and Yarncroc come back. It's going to be really, really crowded. So you better be playing well when that starts to happen. So, I like that. We're probably going to talk about it, but I like that Berube sat Pacioretty. I like that he called the timeout and chewed his team out. Mm-hmm. He's pushing a lot of the right buttons early on here.
Yeah, I think that like anything, you got to pick your spots with the chewing out, and that was a fine spot to do it the first time that you do anything that at least the public can see in the first few games. And yeah, he's had some quotes with the media where he's not exactly Mr. Pleased with the team. He's not going to be overly jovial with the performances, but I like that about him. Again, like he's supposed to be an accountability guy. And so far, so good in terms of that quotient for him. The Pacioretty thing, I think, is good on multiple fronts, though. One is that, you like the point you just made. Two is, it's good if Pacioretty buys into it as well. And maybe that changes if he's sitting more games, especially given his contract is one where he's got to hit those markers in order to get paid more money, which I'm sure he absolutely cares about. But yeah, if he's bought into that as well, if he's taken that with a big smile, given who he is and what he's done in his career, that probably bodes well in terms of spreading that kind of sentiment to the rest of the roster.
And, with his injuries and his age, I think he's coming up on 36, I think. Like, he's one of the oldest guys in the league. He shouldn't be playing every game.
Yeah, that's why I didn't read much into it, to be honest. I went,
I know.
This was maybe scheduled.
Yeah, I thought maybe there was too much made of it or whatever. But he wasn't great in the last game. He hasn't really stood out. I think, Pacioretty would admit the same, that he needs to be better. Mm-hmm. He's coming off tons of injuries. He's barely played in the last 3 seasons. He's not a guy, the past few years when, Joe Thornton would be in the lineup every night or Giordano would be in the lineup every night. It doesn't make sense. And, I think that you got to go to some of these veteran guys and say, you're not playing every game. And the thing, too, is that they need to evaluate, is Pacioretty here the whole season? Maybe he's getting to that bonus with another team or something. I mean, they need to decide because there's going to be players that are moved out.
See, I think that's the especially interesting conversation about Pacioretty and the scratch yesterday is if you look at this team and you try to project where he best fits, to me, the best shot he has is with Tavares. Yes, that line is slow, but that is a line where Tavares wins a faceoff and then they're able to cycle it, and it's some big bodies that are tough to take the puck off of, and they can generate something for you. And it's probably situational at some times, right? Like, what'd you mention Pacioretty was averaging in terms of ice time? 11, 12 minutes?
Yeah, 11. Yeah, not very much.
So I don't think that he would be stapled to Tavares and that he's playing with him every single shift. But ultimately, that is the partner that I view him with that, probably has the best fit and the most upside to it. And then you're saying, okay, so Robertson is the other guy on that wing. But then you mentioned it, Järnkrok comes back, and I think Järnkrok is probably a better player right now than Max Pacioretty is. So what happens when you've got to make that decision? Dewar, to me, is the lesser one. Like, he's not playing in your top 9. That's what Pacioretty has to do because, if he gets bumped down to the top 9, he doesn't have a place on this roster. So if he can't fit there, then, maybe the relationship doesn't end up actually lasting.
I don't know. That was just something I was contemplating watching the game, is that I think it's a real battle for spots with how many forwards they've got. Guys like Lawrence and McMahon, if they lock themselves in, all of a sudden, I could see Robertson sitting another game. I could see, there's going to be decisions that are going to be made. As long as they're healthy, they've got too many forwards, and that should be healthy for this team. That should be healthy. That there's the bottom. What do you want to call it? 5 or 6 forwards on the roster are kind of is it going to be me tonight?
Yeah, that's fine, but eventually you are going to have to make decisions. Like there is a salary cap, and you can't just cycle the guys in and have the lineup every single night and have them be satisfied with that. Like, that works now. That works when you've got the threat, right? The threat of the other guys coming back and the extra guy that they have right now on the roster who can clearly jump in and play. But it would start to get a little tired if we were doing this 20 games into the season.
Well, I mean, if they're carrying 14 forwards, which they might be, I mean, there might be a bit of a. I mean, Reeves is a guy who really. I mean, how many games does he need to play this year? 35. Mm-hmm. So he can be one of the guys that comes out frequently. Mm-hmm. And then you've got the carrot and the stick with whoever the other extra forward is, and you rotate it around a little bit. But you're right. I mean, we'll see what happens with the cap situation. I mean, you and I have talked about it a lot. Like, if they move Kampf out, then all of a sudden there's one fewer center, and then there's going to be an addition process. I think ideally, if Domi can work for you as your let's call it third line center or second line center, then Holmberg should really be on the fourth line instead of playing up the lineup the way that he has been. And things start to look a little bit better. And then it's Dewar versus Holmberg versus Lawrence for that fourth line center role. And maybe those guys are rotating in and out a little bit.
Yeah, I just, for me, one of the guys that's got to stop coming out, and I know that it was just the first game of the season, and I don't know how much of this is actually going to extend further into the year. And maybe this has been good for him because it motivates him. But yeah, Bobby McMahon has 18 goals in 59 games in the last 2 seasons. I don't feel as though he should be part of that group anymore that is fighting for a spot on the roster, unless that dramatically cools off. maybe that's not the pace for him throughout his career, right? Because, yeah, it's a pretty lofty expectation. But at this point, I would need a pretty extended run of poor play from him to say, hey, you shouldn't be one of the 12 guys that's playing every single night.
No, I mean, 100%. I mean, and the thing with him is that he can play on your fourth line and look really good.
That's it.
And he's done that. And what did you say, 16 and 59 or whatever? If you go back to, remember we had that hat trick in the middle of the season last year where the game he wasn't supposed to play, and since that game he's got 16 goals in 33 games.
Yeah, it's 18. Since that game. So it's 18 and 69, I think, games.
Yeah, but it's 16 in the last 33 because he had a drought going before that. So that's like a 40-goal pace. And obviously he's not going to do that. And obviously he's on a heater, but ride the heater. He's just a guy, I watch him, and it's like, how was this guy not drafted? Like, he's got to be the ultimate late bloomer. Like, I need to go and look at video of him 5 years ago because he's just looks like a really impact player for them right now.
Yeah, late bloomer, and now for him, he's got to be able to stay healthy, right? Because that was the thing last year was he's playing great, he's going hot, and then he signs a contract and boom, it's an injury. And you go, oh, right, that's why.
That contract is like, it looks like a dream right now. Like it's got 1.3, I think he makes, and it's signed through next year.
Yeah. No, it was a dream when they signed it. It was a smart move by Treliving. Honestly, Trelivin's on, you want to talk about heaters right now. Like, he's on one. We had, what?
He wants the season to end right now when they give out the GM of the Year award.
Yeah, and my God. He's doing phenomenal. But it's hard not to always look at the guys that were here as you're comparing what you're seeing right now. And yeah, you kind of went, oh, okay. So it is possible to grab a couple guys that work through free agency. All right, let's see it. Anyway, so the other guy that we got to talk about is Stolarz, right? Because he's been great. He has been better than advertised for me. McKee yesterday on Leafs Talk is asking me, what's the catch with this guy? Because he's been so good. And I went, well, he hasn't played really any games into, I think he's 30 now, right? He's
30 years old.
Yeah, he's 30. Yeah, I was going to say. So he's either late 20s, early 30s. Either way. So it's a guy who's not put together a ton of NHL starts, but so far he's big, he's calm, he tracks it well. He's been awesome for the Leafs. I don't think that there's a soft goal that you can pin on him yet, right? There's not one that you went, oof, you'd love to have that, which is huge for this team given what they've had over the last, 8 seasons, where even when they've got good goaltending, they've usually had that guy with that habit. And there's plenty of time for Stolarz to change that. But what is your read on the potential perception change that we could have here with him and the goaltending duties? Because I can't imagine there's much he can do to change what's going to be closer to a split. But you have the whole you don't lose a job to injury thing. But I don't know. It feels like if he puts together this kind of play for another week and a half, it's going to be difficult to think, hey, it's just going to be a 50-50 split, no?
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And I don't think people should be shocked. I mean, he's always shown, like, all of his numbers, and I know the analytics on him are fantastic. Like, he's been really good where he's been. He's had a lot of injuries, it hasn't been talked about a lot, but I think he had both his knees rebuilt 2017 or 2018, and he's been through a lot. And that's a big reason why he doesn't have the body of work with the games played, but he's also been behind good goalies. Last year he's behind Bobrovsky. He was behind John Gibson in Anaheim, who had the big contract and was the clear number one. And, a lot of nights he outplayed Gibson, but, he wasn't going to get the bulk of the starts. And it does happen sometimes with goalies. Like I remember Craig Anderson was a guy who was a backup until he was 30, or, Tim Thomas was pretty old before he became a number one. And I'm not saying Stolarz is going to be Tim Thomas, but
I was going to say, you're going to do Dom Hasek next.
Dwayne Rollison was a guy who I think was a backup, until he was 30, and then he had a really good run as a starter. I think it's possible. He's a guy he's huge. Stolarz he's the biggest goalie in the league at 245 or something. He's one of the biggest players in the whole league. And, sometimes that can put a lot of pressure on bodies. Robin Lehner was another guy, really big body. Yeah. Sometimes that can be hard on the joints and things like that. So I think with Stolarz, it's like, can he stay healthy and can he consistently do it? Because it's a lot different to play really well in 25 games in a season and do it in 50. There's been a lot of guys that have been backups that struggled with that. But so far, top marks to him.
Well, and there's an age difference here, but you've even seen that with last season. You saw that with Martin Jones. He came in, he looked great, and then they had to lean on him a little bit more. And maybe some of that was just regression to the mean, but maybe some of that is just wearing down after not having a significant workload over the last couple of seasons. Again, older player, not a perfect comparison, but yeah, I think a lot of people still want to see the sample from Stolarz go up. I will say, though, when you mentioned the injury stuff, if you look at his injury history since the reconstructed knees in 2017, it hasn't been that horrific. Like, this isn't a Joe Woll situation where he's been hurt every 2 weeks he plays.
I just know, like, I was watching him in preseason even, and I was like, maybe this guy can be the guy.
Yeah.
And so I started texting people who had worked with him in the past, and they were all saying the injuries.
Yeah.
Well, they said maybe, but just got to see if, like, they were like, look closer at his injuries, basically, is what everyone said. So they were saying, don't get ahead of yourself. So I don't know. I mean, injuries are so hard to predict. Sometimes players go through this early in their career and come out of it and they're fine, and the rebuild to everything works and they're good. And sometimes it comes back again. So the other thing I would say too, with Stolarz looking so good, is that all of the defensive analytics for the Leafs are through the roof. Like, they have some of the best defensive numbers in the league right now. You know, the LA game's obviously going to take a bit of a knock out of that, but like between what we're talking about with McCabe and Ekman-Larsson and Tanev and everything, like, they haven't given up that much in the games that Stolarz has played. Well,
the schedule also gets pretty heavy here over the coming week and a bit. They play the 19th, the 21st, the 22nd, the 24th, the 26th, the 28th. That's a lot of games. So what is your understanding of when we could see Joe Woll? Because if he's not healthy, I got to assume that Hildeby gets at least 2 of those.
So the back-to-back's coming, right? So
back-to-back is the 21st and the 22nd. But even still, that's like when I've talked to goaltenders, like I talked to Corey Schneider last week, and he mentioned playing in the back-to-backs is actually not the most difficult thing. It's the third game in 4 nights. Right.
No, but I suspect Hildeby gets the back-to-back, and then after that, Woll is going to be coming. But I mean, I don't know. But Berube said, like, there's not going to be any kind of a rush with him. Like, they know, like, the last thing they want is him to come back too early.
Sure.
So it's gonna be a slow play. But he's been back on the ice, and you know, it wouldn't shock me if he's playing in a game next week.
Well, it would be kind of interesting if he was back for the game on the 26th against the Bruins.
Well, he was so good against them, right?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
He's got their number.
Yeah, so maybe we'll circle that one. We'll circle that game for Joe Woll. I got to admit, I feel for Woll a little bit here because he was the darling of this city, and he's had the injuries. And the Game 7 one especially, right, was, I think, pretty frustrating for fans. They went, wait, what happened? You made another routine save, and you got hurt, and you're out for Game 7, and now Samsonov's in net? That's kind of a nightmare for many of us. And then to open the season with an injury right after the contract, but then to have the other guy step in, look great, start to get the adoration of a lot of fans. I hope that his mentals are as strong as people around him say they are, and as much as people have kind of made it out to be for him, because that could be a tough situation to step back into, is all of a sudden you're playing, against the Boston Bruins after Stolarz has basically, I don't want to say cemented himself, but made himself feel like a fan favorite. That's not the easiest thing. You know, you're going to hear
You're the one starting him against the Boston Bruins. They might not do that. They might give him a soft landing and, you know, give him an easy game coming back.
I would say, hey, you got that contract. You're supposed to be the guy. You better be able to get in that against the Bruins and be fine. It's a regular season game. Figure it out. I like this point you made, though, about Leafs being heavy. You wrote an article about it. You mentioned Stolarz is the biggest goalie in the AHL. I don't know how much of this is actually the goaltenders, but the team is much bigger. And it is pretty crazy to see how quickly the build philosophy has changed with this team from a size standpoint. Felt like under Dubas for long stretches, and he did alter this as it went on throughout his tenure. But that he kept trying to find the light, small guys as the inefficiency in the NHL, and then the league completely zagged on him and went the other way. And it was like, nope, you need big guys, heavy guys for the postseason. Leafs are the heaviest team in hockey right now.
Yeah. And I mean, Hildeby and Stolarz are a little bit of that, but even if you give them league average goalies, they're still going to be right up there in the top 5. So I think they're the fourth tallest team in the league and the heaviest team in the league. Average weight for the guys on the roster right now is 210. So, and that's without Hakanpää, who's going to be there at some point too. So, you look down the lineup, and it doesn't hurt that Matthew Knies put on whatever he put on, 15 pounds or something in the off season. And I know one of the writers asked Knies, how did you do it? And he's like, I don't know, it just kind of happened. So.
Yeah, you know how he did it? He's 23 or 22, and
I think he just turned 22 today.
Yeah, okay, so he's 22 years old, and he's now eating professional food and working out like a professional, and he's got incredible genetics. That's how it happened, Matthew. That's not hard.
Yeah, like he's apparently Knies. I haven't met him in person, but Knies' dad's apparently a guy who's a beast, and there's some Eastern European background in there, and I think his dad's like an aerospace engineer or something like that. But he's just like built like the Hulk, and you can see it. Like Knies is going to be a guy who can probably play at like 235, 237, and just run people over. And with the hands that he has, it's going to be pretty enticing to see.
I think Marner's put on weight too.
I think, yeah. I mean, I think I'm pretty sure. Well, probably Robertson's the lightest guy, but Marner would probably be number two. Like, they don't have very many guys under 200 on this team.
Yeah, but doesn't he look stronger too?
Yeah, he looks like he's not a boy anymore. What's 8th or 9th season, and all those guys, like, it makes me feel old actually looking at them, that they're like getting older now. I mean, like, Riley's like the old man of the team. And I remember when he came in as like the baby face, and it goes quickly. So yeah, Marner looks, he's married. I'm sure he's probably going to be a father here at some point, and he's grown up.
Dude, what made me feel old was putting together that list yesterday and realizing that I had vivid memories of all the players that I listed. I'm going back to 2005, and I could remember games that all those guys could play, and I went, oof, this is a bad look for me.
That was your sad free agent defenseman list for anyone that didn't catch it.
Yeah, it was a painful list, but to go back that far and then to just basically realize I was, ripping through my youth, and that's what I got to watch hockey-wise was tough. I will admit, even though this era has been incredibly disappointing for different reasons, that, what is it? Hope. It's the hope that kills you. Hope that drives a man insane, that Red says in Shawshank. So there's a different kind of torture to having an entertaining and a quality team full of talent that doesn't get over the hump and can't even get out of the first round. There's no doubt about it. But when I was looking back on some of those rosters, I thought, I can't believe that I watched all these games of these teams and actually invested my time and efforts into watching this product. Like, you go back and you look at some of those groups, and it is just putrid. It is like, it's like the point totals of the top guys, and then everybody else. It's bad. It's really, 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 really bad. It's maybe worse than people even remember.
You were trying to talk up Pavel Kubina as potentially the best free agent defenseman they had signed in the cap era. That's just that. Yeah. And you're not wrong. You're not wrong that he's right there on that list. I mean, I guess TJ Brody, maybe.
I think if you look at the first, this is the way that I would break this down. If you're talking about the best 2 years, I think it's TJ Brody before he fell apart in the final year of the deal. If you're talking about who lived up to the deal the most, it's probably Ron Hainsey, because he just didn't have that massive drop-off, and he was worth the contract the entire time. But then Kubina is absolutely the number 3. Like, there's no... I don't think there's much of a discussion about it unless you're talking about the amount of money that he made versus Klee. But, yeah, that's the list. That's the top 4 guys, conclusively.
I started covering the team in 2007, and they were just a total disaster. Yeah. Like, I think my second season covering the team, and I was a young guy back then. It shows how long ago that was. My second season was they trade the picks for Kessel and then finish second last. Mm-hmm. And it's like, what is this? Like, what is going on? I was in the running. I could have covered any number of Canadian NHL teams and been a beat writer there. Mm-hmm. I'm from Western Canada. I happened to get the job with the Leafs, and they were a complete laughingstock. And having to be there every single day and be at every game and chronicle every game, and not as a fan, but just as someone trying to like pick it apart. It's like, what a mess. What a mess that this is like the marquee franchise for the league, and this is the way that they're run. And so you're right. They've come a long way since then. all they need is just 1 year to break through in the playoffs, and it really changes the perception of everything right now.
I was in second year university when the Kessel trade happened, and I was very excited because I was working as a mover at the time, and I got to move him to Toronto into his condo. And
nice.
But it was actually extremely embarrassing because I tried to talk to him about hockey. I was like, "Oh, so who do you think he's going to play with?" He's like, "Oh," I was like, "Whoops, all right, my bad, my bad. I shouldn't have said anything to you." And then my other buddy that was out moving was talking about UFC, and they were hitting it off, and I was like, "Oh, I'm so jealous. I blew it. You're being cool, Joe, and I'm ruining this. This sucks." But yeah, that trade didn't work out exactly the way
he loved it though. Phil loved how much people cared though. He loved getting stopped.
Probably
on the street
eventually, but
he's a very shy person. He was super, super introverted. I don't know if it was broadcast enough, but he just wasn't comfortable interacting with anyone he didn't know.
Yeah.
So
he did sign a lot of pucks for me though, for my friends, so that was nice. I'll never forget. He was very generous in terms of me showing up with basically 10 pucks, going "Hey, here we go."
He was trying to get back in this year. He was making noise in training camp. Somebody signed me, and I know last year too. And it's too bad that I would like to see him catch on somewhere on the forward line and give it another go.
Well, here's the thing. It's worth it just for the stories and the impressions that players do of him after having him on as a teammate. That's my favorite thing Versteeg does is when he does his Phil voice. He comes on, he tells us. What?
Isn't Kessel just shy of 1,000 games? Doesn't he I think he's really close to that, and it would be nice to get him in one more half season. And it's not going to happen now. He's part of the Poker Stars tournament and all that stuff. So
no, he's got 1286. He's good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's way over. Yeah, I was going to say that Ironman streak, and he's not over 1,000. But
1,000 points, is that what he's looking for?
Yeah, he's 992. It's 992.
Yeah, so there's a milestone. Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah,
he's right there. Oh, yeah, that would be nice for him to get that. Oh, damn. Now I feel bad. Now I feel bad for Phil. Who doesn't want Phil Kessel back in the league? That's an obvious
apparently
thing.
Everybody.
Yeah,
apparently all the GMs.
Sorry. Every fan wants Phil Kessel back in the league. It doesn't appear that any team wants Phil Kessel back in the league.
Why does San Jose just play him with Celebrini and just get him to 1,000 points? And I don't know. I feel like someone should sign Kessel right now.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense until you remember that San Jose fans have no idea what's going on and they wouldn't even know who he is.
He wouldn't even care, though.
Yeah.
Phil would just be excited to be playing hockey again.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just saying that part of the argument that you would make for signing him is, hey, okay, this is going to be someone that fans are excited to at least see him, right? But he is a good locker room guy, right? People really seem to love him in the dressing room. So I'm surprised that part hasn't been able to kind of push him over the top and just land him a spot somewhere. You're right.
Yeah, put him on the power play, play him 10 minutes a game, and I don't know, part of the downfall for him in Vegas is the team was just so good. He needs to close out his career somewhere where he can just play down the lineup and wins aren't everything. And I don't know. I'd like to see him get to 1,000 points. I think he should be there.
Yeah, I agree. And how old is he? He's 37. Yeah, he's not. Yeah. Yeah, hey, you know what? That's where this landed today. This was good. This was great. We talked about the Leafs, and then we just came to the conclusion that Phil Kessel should be playing for somebody. Give Phil Kessel a spot. He's only 37 years old. He's still got something to give, and he's 8 points away from hitting 1,000. So somebody work on that. James Mirtle, thanks as always for the time. Can read your stuff about the Leafs and the weight and the heaviness of the team under Tree Living on The Athletic today. Thanks for making time, buddy.
Thanks, JD.
Take care.